Hey everyone, my name is Sam. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I am the Member Experience Manager at Advent Coworking. I want to thank you for joining us for today's Advent Member Talk. This weekly event gives our members an opportunity to share their skills and knowledge and experience not only with other members, but with the greater Charlotte community. And today we are joined by our member Bilal, who is going to be speaking to us about personal privacy tools. So I will hand it over to you.
Okay, I guess I'm live. Well, welcome everybody. Hopefully this is not going to be super painful. The objective is to get you background information for you to act on some of the things related to privacy. So having said that, I'm going to share my screen, talk a little bit about that. Oh, here we go. And I think it looks like I'm sharing. I am the CEO, or in our parlance, the Chief Worker Bee of XcooBee. XcooBee is a privacy and payments platform, so we make tools that help organizations move data in a compliant way from consumers to the organization for consumption and lifecycle management. We also make super kick-ass payment tools. You can think of them as Venmo steroids for business. So if you need to collect payments in the field and don't want to touch anything, all of our tools are contactless, and they are very flexible and easy to roll out. So having said all that, let's look at some things that we can do on the privacy side that I think are important to know. So I'm going to go through a top 10. That's always a good number, how many things we are putting together. And I'm going to start with something very simple that you might have heard of before, which is cookies. So cookies and fingerprints actually belong together. While cookies were the old way of leaving data trails and recognition markers behind, so third-party websites could identify you and follow you across on the internet. Fingerprints are a newer paradigm where they don't leave anything behind, but you still be tracked. Fingerprinting really relies on what is available on your browser and creates a unique signature, and the unique signature is what people are tracking. So the first thing there to know is you need to know your browser, and you need to know your browser options. Whatever your favorite browser is, take some time to look at the options and settings area, and look at options, especially surrounding keep local data until I quit my browser, which is a pattern that will automatically erase any data that you have collected while you were browsing on the internet. Before I go to point number 2, the question that may come up to you is like, why should I concern about privacy? The main reason I would put forth to you guys is that we really don't know the true impacts of loss of data or resell of data, whether it's through a breach out on a company's website or through voluntarily giving away your information. Your life will be impacted in the future by that loss of data. Many decisions about you, for you, will be made by others, and they do so by looking at what you've given, provided voluntarily, or they could obtain. And so there may be impacts for you later on in health insurance coverage. If you want to maybe take out a loan later, 10 years from now, and they look back and say, hey, you have a risky behavior, we can't give you money. So it does pay to pay attention today in order to prepare for the future. Some people will say, I don't need to bother, but I think because you're attending here today, I'm guessing you're more interested in to know what you can do today about things. Number 2 here that I am proposing for people to consider is spread your browser love. There are 3 elements here. Is 1, use browsers specifically made with less tracking in mind. The 2 ones that I normally recommend are Brave and Firefox Focus. Both of them have patterns already built in where they kill tracker cookies automatically. They stop a lot of things that you would normally see other browsers pass as tracking elements. And so a lot of the defaults that they do in terms of behavior are pretty much fitting what you want to do yourself. Use in private mode when you can. If you've ever discovered where that is, normally it's in the 3-dot menu. You can say open a private mode window, or anything like that. I have made it a habit to, even in other browsers, when I do any sort of web search, to first engage private mode and then close it out when my search is complete. This will prevent me from all of a sudden seeing things that I searched for while I'm watching TV or while I'm streaming something from Netflix or Amazon. All of a sudden I see products that I searched for. Those kind of weird things will happen because companies actually sell data amongst themselves in terms of the tracking pieces to correlate and build profiles. Facebook and Twitter, if you open them in private mode, that's also a good way of controlling what Facebook and Twitter sees. More Facebook is a very pervasive tracker of information. And the third technique to use is to use different browsers for different tasks. Maybe you use one specifically for Facebook, one specifically for Twitter, and one specifically for your email. So they never cross path, and so you don't contaminate, so to speak, your profile with information that another service might find helpful to sell. All right. Number 3. I am normally recommending that you stay away from plugins into browsers. A lot of browsers now allow you to extend their functionality or quote unquote enhance their functionality through plugins. Many of those that are on markets lately, Chrome from Google has published quite a few problems with plugins where third-party developers were actually embedding malicious code, whether it is for Bitcoin or overall computing in the background, or just stealing your data. There's a lot of things that are, I think, very weakly controlled, but there are also good plugins. And 2 of them I'm highly recommend you take a look at is the Privacy Badger, which is actually blocks invisible trackers if you don't want to use one of the already privacy-enabled browsers, and FB Purity that does quite a bit of things when you surf in Facebook in terms of blocking sponsored messages, blocking ads, and that kind of stuff, which gives you a lot better experience in terms of focusing on messages that are from friends and family rather than what Facebook wants you to see and interact with. Use privacy DNS. So DNS is, if you don't know, is the internet equivalent for a phone book. The abbreviation is domain name servers. This is what your computer does to look up where actual server is located. When you type in, for example, Google, it actually looks up where Google is located and calls that number. Whenever you do so, there's actually quite a bit of trace data that you leave behind. Every look and every search that you do is being categorized and cataloged by the servers from your internet service provider normally, as well as later on by all the intermediate middlemen that would deliver the traffic to you. So based on that alone, people can build quite extensive profiles of your I guess, personality or traits and behaviors. I'm suggesting that you look at alternate DNSs that don't do that. One of them that's out there and free, obviously, is Cloudflare. If you know a little bit more technologically speaking, their IP address is 1111, which makes it very easy to set up. I would normally recommend that if you have a router that has a DNS setting, that you set it up there so all of your home machines will share it. And if you're not sure how to do it, this is a little slightly more technical, maybe to look at a documentation for your router at home or for your computer, whether it's a Mac or Windows computer, and look how you can change DNS, because most of the time you can actually set it. Privacy search engines goes very much along to when we search on the web, what happens. Everybody nowadays is aware that Google is not necessarily a friendly, do no evil kind of company anymore. They're made to billions by selling what you do. You are the product. And so if you want to opt out of the system, you have to use other search engines that do not do the tracking in an extensive way that Google does. I'm recommending that we look at DuckDuckGo, for example. Most browsers will have an area in their settings that allow you to change the default from whatever it is set to, whether it's Microsoft to Bing to DuckDuckGo, or from Chrome, Google to DuckDuckGo as well. And there are a few other ones you feel free to peruse that promise similar services. All right. we are doing good in time. I think I'm halfway through my top 10 and halfway through the time. So if there's any questions, I think Sam is getting them for me so we can take a few minutes at the end to answer them. This is important. This is part of personal responsibility. You have to clean house. If you don't want your data to be out there, you have to actually look at the accounts that you have and see which ones you're actively using, and see whether you need to actually go through the process of closing accounts that you don't use. Also, a good thing to look at is to request data for accounts that you do use, so you have an idea what is out there in the public realm or in corporate data servers about you. The good thing is many of the companies now have a way of requesting data. Under the GDPR in Europe, under CCPA in California, they have to give you some access to it, and most of them have chosen to make that access available in general. You can use a tool like XcooBee if you're not sure whether the company has a way of asking for information. We have a universal way of doing so, and we have already about 100,000 plus companies for which we are tracking their emails that you can make requests from and track whether people supply data to you. Similarly, if you're using a mobile device, and all of us normally use one, look at the apps that you're using or not using particularly. Many of the apps had been or used to have a very bad habit of collecting location information, even though there was no need for it. Whether it was your couponing app that you downloaded feeling very excited about getting 10 cents back, or your pharmacy app, they are doing things that you might not agree to. So by tracking you, they actually built information and personality into a profile with habits, locations, and behaviors. And so the idea here would be to look very closely at all the things that accumulate over time and start uninstalling. And remove anything that you don't use. Also, this will take some time. Check all the permissions that apps have gotten from you. Do they really need to be accessing the network all the time in order to deliver the function that you need? Some of them you'd be surprised about why they would need network access in the first place, or location access for that matter. So turn that off if you want to keep the app. VPNs, I think initially when privacy is mentioned, people think VPN, that's something that comes to you. It stands for Virtual Private Network. It's meant to be able to bypass your ISP, because the ISP, when you make search requests and DNS requests, as we mentioned earlier, has an ability to track that and build profiles and sell your data that way. This is one way of bypassing your ISP altogether. Because they have not necessarily an interest for you for this to be easy. You will really have to look at it from a technology perspective, whether you can handle it. Many of the VPN providers have plugins for your computers and for your mobile devices. Some of them even have documentation on how to change your router to do that comprehensively for all of your home network, but not all of VPN providers are made equal. So really you need to do some research on them, because some of them are also bad apples in their own right. They may expose you to a completely different threat. So because they are done by malicious people in order to take advantage of your fears and reservations. I would say there is the good thing here is there's actually independent arbiters of which VPNs are good or bad. And take a look at them, look through them. They may cost you a few dollars a month, but I think overall they will also reroute your traffic in a safe way and ensure that you're not attacked directly. If you have an ISP that exposes your IP, they will hide you from direct attacks as well as hide your traffic from the ISP. I say don't forget your cell phone, because many times we are surfing the internet through our cell phone. There are VPN services for cell phones as well. Okay. You can do a lot about email, and you should. Your email is a primary key, a mechanism that people hang data onto. Basically, asmith@scoobee.com will be the profile link to all kinds of data about, let's say, Adrian Smith at XcooBee. You want to be very careful whom you are extending your email to. How you're sharing it and how you're controlling it will have long-term implications, because once you share your email, the unfortunate thing is that it gets sold very quickly as part of profile information, even though it's not supposed to. Under the European and some of the regulations that are coming up in the United States on a state-by-state level, that is no longer allowed to be done, but it doesn't mean that your email doesn't get sold anyway. So in order to prevent that, I call it once compromised, they are difficult to control. You want to start controlling how you give out information and what email you give out. Don't trust organizations that you don't do regular business with, or you have had experience over time. I would suggest an email aliasing service, or any way that you can actually not give out your email altogether. I'm suggesting here something like XcooBee Email Guard, and if you want to try it, talk to me afterwards. Or what? This is really so simple to do. You don't even have to change your email inbox or anything, but you can all of a sudden give out gazillions email addresses, special purpose to anyone, in 10 seconds or less. I'm using it normally on my mobile device, and if the guy says, hey, you can get 10% off, I'm no longer shy about giving them an email. It won't be my real email, but I can interact with it for a day, and then I can kill it. And they will be non-visor when trying to sell it, and all of a sudden it no longer functions. So it is very important, because the email as well as your phone number are primary keys into your profile. People do a lot of things with your phone number. They do a lot of things with your email, and you should take very good care of whom you give it to, because your I guess missteps will build up over time in terms of the traffic that you get that you don't want. Okay. Number 9, we're getting closer to the end. How are we feeling? Because I don't hear anybody. I'm assuming you are just jumping up for joy. I call it be liberal with wrong information. Many times when we are being asked on the internet to fill in a form to get a download of a report, there's really no need for you to be all that forthcoming on who you are. You don't want to do business with the particular corporation. You should have the mechanism or the time to evaluate whether the products or services they sell are the products or services you want. So there's no reason for you to give that information. I have a few alter egos that I throw out there for good measure. I change them all the time. I spent the time to make that happen. You can create one and give that out all the time, especially if you have email aliasing or some way of managing your emails. It's very easy. You just make yourself to be Brian Smorregard and give them an email that sounds like it, and you get the information that you need, and you shut it down. That way, they don't have your information. It's similarly, if you want to get political rally tickets, and you really don't want them to give them your email address, because they will bombard you for sure. This is one way of doing it. Make up something anywhere you go. If you now want to change and do want to do business, I would then obviously recommend that you give the correct information in order for the business relationship to succeed. Okay, we're coming to the end. We need to look at our own social media behavior, because we are accumulating a lot of information about our preferences, about what our likes and dislikes, by the very act of interacting with a provider like Facebook. Facebook is very good in analyzing not just the clicks, but also your mouse movements on your page, and your comments, and making judgments whether you're in a good mood and a bad mood, and give you content according to what they desire, not what you want. So what you put out there will live forever. It can hurt you long term. It is nowadays fairly common for employers to ask about access to your Facebook account just to see what you post and how. So there's no need for Facebook and Instagram to know everything about you. That's just my recommendation in life. Whether you feel like sharing or not, obviously, is a personal preference. But be aware that it has long-term implications. Even if you say delete, it may not be deleted immediately. And many of the companies do still maintain profile information overall, even if they delete some content. Another thing that I always like to point out when you surf on Facebook or Twitter or anything else and Instagram, don't forget to log out. Just because you close the window or you do the first log out step doesn't mean that you have actually removed the trackers, which is very, very interesting. And it's because Facebook actually tracks people that have no Facebook account as well. That's why I'm um, recommending that you use privacy browsers that block this. But even if you have a Facebook account and you believe you've logged out, you probably have not. One way to tell is when you go back to Facebook and they display 5 different accounts to log into, they've tracked you and they've continued to tracking you across many different websites and building profile about your search behavior, whether you looked at mattresses or TVs, they know. So really do log out and really do log out a few times, clear the cookies if you have to. All right. Um, Overall, if you want to be better, you have to invest some time and even some money. I think get better tools for sure. We really don't know what the long-term implications of data loss are. We know that your data has value. You know that your data has value. The tools that make you benefit from it, from your data, are not there altogether yet. We at XcooBee working for with some of these ideas to make sure that people in the long term can benefit from their data. But overall, there are implications for being bad at doing personal privacy, whether it's high car insurance or jail time. And this is unfortunately real. Um, there are dangers for people if you live in different countries by acting on social media in a way that is not expected to be good in that country. You do have to put in the time. I don't think there is a magic wand or bullet that you can wave and say all of a sudden I'm going to be good. I think it boils down to personal discipline, and it boils down to personal vigilance over time, and using the proper tools, of course, when you can. So you don't have to do it all manually, but you have to think differently and act differently. The internet was born in an age when everybody trusted each other. So if I if I were an educator in a university setting, and another educator from another university called on me, I would of course reply to them. Of course I would believe them. That is no longer the internet. It has not been for a long, long time. There are bad people, and there's a lot of bad people there, and there's bad actors. You have to also look out for your own long-term data health, like you would look out for your own term personal health. I think they will belong together. We have not quite mastered the data health component, unfortunately, and I do hope so, and long term that we can improve on that. So hopefully that was about right in terms of timing. I think we have a few minutes to address questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to unshare your screen just for a moment.
Okay.
So if anyone knows me, they know that I'm very passionate about, digital privacy tools. And one thing that I hear from a lot of people is like, well, I'm not searching for anything bad, or I have nothing to hide, or kind of that idea of like, why do I need to protect, you know, myself or what have you? What kind of response do you have for folks who say that?
Um, this is the funny part. I say use the Second Amendment, people. You don't have to have a gun. You don't need to protect yourself. It's a safe society, isn't it? Why do you have a gun? Why do you want a right for a gun? If that's just on the physical space, think about that of that translated into the data space, because I think you need to protect yourself and you need to have tools to protect yourself long term, even though there doesn't have to be anything malicious that you do.
Exactly. Cool. We have a few more questions. I'll try and keep us within the
Okay.
last 4 minutes here. First, do you recommend closing email accounts you've had for years if you were not careful with giving it out previously?
Depends on how much annoyance you want to tolerate. If you see that you've been overwhelmed by spam, there's probably not an easy way for you to escape it. And sometimes it's okay to clean house, where you say, okay, I've used this account, I'm going to close it. I know my friends, I'm going to let them know what my new email account is, and that is okay. You can go through, I would go through the last year of your email, find out which businesses that you want to deal with have it, make those changes, forget about everybody else. It's an easy way to clean house. You can also see whom you're dealing with and whom you don't. It will take a little time, but it probably will relieve a lot of stress because you have to deal with a lot less going forward.
Right. And then can you explain what you meant when you said Facebook can track you even if you don't have an account?
Yes. Facebook actually has a collection of partners and partner sites. Basically, everybody that ever used the Facebook library to enhance some of their features deploys a piece of Facebook code across all of their properties. So Facebook will assign a tracking ID to you, whether you have a Facebook account per se or not, through that mechanism, and will track you across many properties that are not Facebook, and build a profile on you and sell it gladly to any highest bidder out there. They would not know necessarily what your name is unless somebody of their partner sites shared it with them, but they've built a profile about you. You know, you love bikes, you're between 35 and 45, you live in this location. If you want to advertise, this is the advertising that would resonate with you. And as you're visiting sites that are driven by Facebook advertising, guess what you will see? So Facebook accounts are not necessarily to be subject to Facebook tracking. There's been a lot of controversy around that lately, and I'd be glad to share some in articles.
Yeah, that would be great. Last two questions. One, why does my computer overheat when I use a VPN?
Okay, there are many situations, many reasons, but the main reason is that a VPN's working principle is encryption that is real time. Encryption is incredibly compute intensive, so your CPU cycles tend to go up. That means your computer has to have certain, I guess, processing powers in order for encryption to work smoothly. So there's a lot of computing happening. It's basically you running a lot of processing. And as you're running a lot of processing in your CPU, guess what? The CPU heats up. And so the fan starts going. So that's the main reason, especially on computers that are borderline in terms of the performance that's needed.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. If folks want to learn more about this information or get in contact with you, how can they do that?
If you go just on XcooBee.com, or if you're an Advent, reach out through the portal. Either one will work. We have on XcooBee, we have actually a chat system, and you can actually ask questions, and somebody in support will normally tag it. If you say, I want to talk to Bilal, and then they normally send it to me. How's that?
I must speak with Bilal.
Give it to me now. But yes, we actually have a chat feature on our website, and you can basically ask questions, or you obviously, if you know me, you have my email, or reach out to me via LinkedIn. All of those will work.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. I hope that you'll join us next Tuesday at 4:30 for our following Advent member talk. And I hope you all have a great evening.
Thanks.
Bye.